Hi, Bob here, and in this video, we are going to be looking pretty much at my full process. I'm doing a study of an Aaron Westberg drawing, which will be up on the screen in a wee minute. To start with, as you can see, I am sampling from the canvas, and this is not something that we are encouraged to do, but in my mind, it's actually a good way of understanding where values lie on a scale, where what hue is getting used for skin colours, and how do other people paint? How do they get their colours? How do we get those colours from those ones that are available to us? It's a good exercise to take some of those colours at the side, the Prussian blue, cadmium green, and then mix them together to get these colours. And that's why I'm saying sample from the picture and then maybe try some mixing some colours from scratch to see if you can achieve the same tone, the same values as you can see in the drawing. So I am just going to lay down a background color here, but this video isn't really about me talking through the entire process. I will talk about the process a wee bit, but a few people mentioned to me about slowing things down. Now, a drawing takes about 3 hours minimum to get something at least half decent, and I can't do a 3 hour video. It would just take too long, but this video will be the full process from start to finish of this painting. It has speeded up to 3 times, but you should be able to pause and capture what I'm doing. Um, Really, I'm just working with oil painting brushes and trying out different things to see if I can mimic this reference that I'm using. As I said, this video is a wee bit different. I am got a lot of work on at the moment. I did mention that in my community posts that work was a bit crazy at the moment, and this might be the last video for at least a couple of weeks again. We will see how we go. But the subjects I'm going to talk today about are AI art is one of them, and then I'm going to look at some specific art questions that are available, and we'll see where we get to. I'm just going to talk along to the process at the same time. There's no script here. This is just me spitballing and trying to understand how to show my process. But for me to edit a 40 odd minute video would just take way too long. So let's talk about the process to begin with. I mean, as you can see, I'm just sketching from visual. I never used any reference guides for this image. I wanted to kind of get my own take on the reference just by using my eye to find out what the guy's face looked like and lay down the colours using various brushes. Again, at this point, I'm just trying different brushes to see what textures I could get, and I think I'm going to do like a wee cheat sheet at some point of the brushes that I like. There's way too many brushes, and I really need to get them into my favourites. But I'll let you watch along. If you do see, what I've done recently is I did change away from using my Huion monitor tablet. And part of the reason for that is I was trying to do some painting exercises to see about brush pressure. And the Huion doesn't really have that great a take to it. I don't know if that's the right word or not. As I said, this is totally unscripted, but I was finding that the Huion was difficult to get the pressure sensitivity to be a smooth transition. I would be drawing a thin line, for example, and then I would put some pressure on, and eventually it would just blow up to this big, huge brush size, which was getting a bit frustrating. And I thought, I've got a Wacom tablet here, an Intuos Medium Pro that I bought back in 2016, I'm guessing, when I first get started, and I did use it initially, and it was really good. I mean, the quality of Wacom stuff is undeniable. It's just the cost side of it, the cost of one of their big monitor tablets. You're talking thousands of pounds, which not everybody has, and not many people have just sitting around ready to use. I mean, a PlayStation 5 is a big outlay for a lot of people. But yeah, so I've moved over to using the Wacom tablet, and I'm really enjoying having the extra space on my desk as well. I have had to take a wee bit of getting used to it again, but it's got such better features than the Huion for changing the brush sizes, the touch screen aspect of it. And you can buy a Huion tablet that does have touch input, but you know, my dog in the background. Clearly, my dog has seen somebody outside and has decided to bark. They're annoying. They're evil people. Bark at them and they'll run away. But yeah, so AI art. Let's talk about AI art, and it's been a big topic recently. Maybe you've not been involved in that conversation. Maybe you've not seen it. For me, it was quite a surprise. I've never seen AI art as such, and I was using Canva the other day to do some editing of a document, or sometimes I use it for my thumbnails. In fact, I use Canva all the time for my thumbnails. But it came with a like an add-on feature for text to image, and I tried it, and it was pretty bad. To be fair, it was very poor. But I did then go into Discord and I downloaded Midjourney, which is one of the big AI generators, and they give you like 25 free prompts that you can put into Discord as an add-on, and it will generate art based on some text that you put in. So if you don't know what AI art is, it's artificial intelligence art that's created by a computer using a base of reference images, and it's quite a hot topic at the moment. A lot of discourse regarding it, and people really quite annoyed about it and scared by the prospects because some of the art that it's generating is simply superb. But you can go into Discord and you can download this Mid-Journey thing, and you can type in something like paint me a female warrior with golden armor looking up at a castle in the style of Rembrandt, and it will go back to its reference images that it's got, which is millions, if not billions, of images. I don't actually know what the amount is, but it takes those images and it does computer maths and computer coding, which I know a bit about, and it generates four different images that you can then subsequently refine and then get a produced image. So just simply Google AI images and you'll see some stunning artwork that the computer can generate within minutes, which is a big worry for a lot of industrial artists, is this worry of AI coming in and taking over from, say, doing a book cover, which I can see the lure. If I'm a book publisher and I don't have a lot of money, for example, or I'm a small company, do I want to go and spend thousands getting an artist to produce a book cover for my small publishing company? No, I'm going to go and use something that's cheap, cheerful, and produces top class professional art, which in other terms would probably cost thousands to be created. So I see the benefit of it from that point of view, and from a business point of view. But obviously, by that happening, you're then going to put an artist out of work. There's not going to be as many future uh, opportunities for artists to come in and work for small businesses like that. They're just going to go to the AI generators, type in the prompt, and get it themselves. And especially if they're not a big company. So is AI just a new tool? And I can see that it could be. I've actually downloaded quite a few AI references myself just because of how spectacular they look and the details in them. They're not really copyrighted, but we'll get onto that in a minute. But they can't really come with any copyright claim on them because you don't really know who's created them other than this kind of central server. So I don't know how you copyright that in that world. That's maybe some other discussion to come along. And my dog's seen somebody else out the window. Um, but I've lost my train of thought. So AI, is it just a new tool? So I've downloaded a few references. I've downloaded a few references of the AI art because of how spectacular they are, and you can see some really lovely features inside them. They've obviously taken. And this is where we come into, where does the art come from? How does the computer know what to draw? Where does the millions of images come from? And if you've looked into this at all, you'll know that these have basically been scraped from the internet, from sites like DeviantArt, ArtStation, people's websites, without any regard for copyright. And it's been under the guise of a non-profit organizational take, which then people have moved on to producing a paid version of using this AI to produce images, which is obviously a business model. Yet the people who created all the artwork to begin with have got no recompense. They've not been compensated for their work. They've not been given any money or even any knowledge of this system, this AI taking their art. It's very futuristic, this talk around AI. It's quite scary. It is very Terminator movie based. So should we be worried as artists? And I think that's where it comes down to a bit of a grey area. Should I be worried as me personally as an artist? Art is not my main income. I don't make any money from art. In fact, I lose money from art. I spend a lot of weekends doing these YouTube videos. Recently get monetized, and I think I've made £7 in, I don't know, it would be a couple of weeks. I think I've made £7, which is obviously that's of no use whatsoever. I make more doing my normal job as an engineer. So I make more money, a lot more money from doing job as an engineer. And when you take into account the electricity I use to do all this, the time spent, £7 over 2 weeks is I'm actually at a loss. So for me, it doesn't the AI art side of things doesn't scare me, but I can see, and I was reading a lot of comments on other videos on this, people a bit worried about their future, especially if they were in art school and looking to break into an art world commercial aspect, where you would have to say that over time, the AI art is that good that companies just aren't going to want to hire artists for specific jobs. And I think there'll be a big contraction in the job market from that point of view down to, I don't know the multiplication, but I don't see why a big company would then pay for an artist when they can just bring in one guy who can use the AI art generator, maybe an art director, and they then sit and talk through what art they're going to use. Now, it's not clever enough at this present moment, as far as I can see, but it is very, very clever to totally give an artistic or an art director their exact look. But if you imagine later on, rather than text prompts, the art director sketches up on a piece of paper a 5 minute doodle of the person. And maybe the art director's got a bit of artistic skill to them, which I presume they will have. They could sketch the scene from the position they want, or they could find a similar image which has got the camera angle or the viewing angle that they want, the type of art, and they would just upload the images and say, bring me something like this along with a text prompt. And the AI will be able to sort through all its images very, very quickly and give you something that is unique, new, and exactly what the art director's looking for. So there will be, I just don't see it unless some laws come in, and then laws can be broken. And you see that throughout the piracy world, you see it throughout different countries having different laws. They'll just get shipped to a country that doesn't have those laws, and then people will be able to pretend that an artist did it. Oh, I get sent it from this artist in X country, and really it's just an AI generated image. Unless some sort of law comes in that affects these big companies, but I don't see it. It's just too big. It's too big to tackle. Um, does that mean that you shouldn't do art? Well, for me, no, because I love drawing, and I think somebody I was reading one of their comments was about pottery, and they talked about how China had manufactured a big industry in pottery, mass manufacture of different bowls and pottery, and but it did actually make a big issue with jobs to do with making pottery. But the other side of that is the demand for handmade and uniquely made art and pottery increased in the market there. was bigger. Now these big companies then tried to jump on board there and mark theirs as handmade and tried to kind of say that. But that's where I think the likes of YouTube, the likes of me sitting here talking, me sitting here talking to you guys, you know who I am. I can show you my artwork. You can see that it's handmade. I can take you through the entire process. The AI doesn't do the process of drawing, and that doesn't mean that in the future it won't be able to, at least pretend it is. But that's where you've got to develop trust with your art. You've got to say, this is something I've drew, and give people value, which is the purpose of my YouTube, is to try and help people along their digital art kind of journey. So yeah, I think jobs will go. I think if you're an art student just now, me personally, I would be a bit concerned about my role and where I'm going and how I'm going to support myself. And I think it's something that does need to be uh, considered. I don't think it will delete all the artist jobs. I just think that the ones that are available will become v- pretty unique. And for companies, especially, I think they'll be looking to use specific people. And I think the job market will contract from that point of view. And we have seen it in many industries over the years. For myself, as an engineer, I have programmed robots. I've worked with robots that make um, complicated parts and do complicated jobs. Those jobs are no longer done by an individual. So how do you compete with that? You don't. You just move on with the times, and the jobs change. You see it in supermarkets. You see the way the self checkout tills, where we've all to go and do the job that somebody else used to do, and now we're down to a skeleton of staff in the supermarkets. You just see it across the board, and I don't think AI art is going to be any different. So one of the big issues was the copyright aspect of this, and it basically is that the AI art has been trained on existing images that people have not given consent to use, and that is breach of copyright in any circle. For example, there's been a recent drama in the retro gaming community where somebody used an image taken by a photographer of a famous person. And the photographer then went to the YouTube channel and said, look, you've used my image. The normal cost is about £500 to use my image. So I'm going to ask you to pay that because you didn't come and ask for permission to use my photograph in your video, and you've used it at full resolution. There's not been any kind of link to my artwork, etc., my photography website. So this is what I think is needed, and there's been a bit of back and forward between the two parties on this. So if you imagine that every photographer and every artist went to these companies that have scraped all that information and said, for the billion images, we need a £500 per image, they're just not going to be able to afford that in any way, shape, or form. The companies would go bust. But they've literally taken this, and I don't know how you unteach an AI unless you delete it. But somebody will still have it somewhere on a computer somewhere. And that is the big argument, is that there's no compensation coming back to these artists. And I would fully agree with that. I'm going to spend hours and hours and hours learning my craft. It's the same as my engineering role. If the AI comes along and does my engineering job, which is a wee bit more difficult because it's not, a lot of my work is not computer based, it's actually being in front of the machine or the equipment and diagnosing problems. At the moment, we're nowhere near having something that could go to a bit of plant and smell, use its touch to understand vibration. You can obviously use a lot of tools that help you with that to monitor it, but we're not at the point where you can replace engineers. But it doesn't mean it's not going to come in the future. And we're going to end up in a world like Wall-E where everybody's just sitting on a lovely wee spacecraft getting fat and watching movies. Maybe I'm wrong. So I've not really talked much about my process. So hopefully you're managing to keep up and watch along to the process going ahead and me trying to get on with this artwork and get something that's my own, and you're able to see the process of me working through that. But so that's kind of my AI art talk. I think it's a big problem. I think it is for the art community, and I think it's something that really needs a lot of thought moving forward. I think it might be too far down the road. I don't know how you stop the train that's out of control. These companies have already built the AI. The AI is out there. It's open source almost, I think it is. How do you stop people profiting from that and using all of your images? I just don't know who you target or who you take to court. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, but I think it's then going to come down to relationships. It's going to come down to the human factor of I'm an artist. It has a problem with digital art as well. If you do traditional art, you're going to be less affected. But that's AI art. So let's look at some of the other questions I had wrote down here. So one of the questions I had here was what role does art have in society? And it kind of ties into the AI art. I mean, if you're going to have a society, what is the purpose of artwork? And I was watching a program or a movie called The Philosophers. It was just a movie that I happened to see. I think it was on Amazon Prime. Quite a recent movie. Um, Ginny Weasley, what's her name? Bonnie Wright from Harry Potter was in it, along with I think the girl that plays Star something in The Boys TV show. So and there's somebody for Glee in there as well. But the idea is that the kids have went to this classroom and it's the last day of class and the lecturer's going to take them through a mind or a thought exercise about philosophy and the end of the world, so the apocalypse. And he walks about the classroom and I'm not going to give too many spoilers here, but he walks around the classroom giving out roles and each of the kids puts their hand into this bag and they pull out a role and somebody's an electrician, somebody's a harp player, somebody's a poet, somebody's an electrical engineer, somebody's a structural engineer, an architect. You get the picture. The idea being that you've got to choose as a group. There's only 10 spaces, there's 20 people. Choose based on people's roles in society. Where should they get access to this bunker, which will protect them from the apocalypse, from the nuclear bombs that are going to fall, or from the cataclysmic, can't even say that word, cataclysmic effect that is about to happen due to some issue that has been arose in the world. I'm just going to check something quickly. Yep, just checking I'm recording here, which is ideal. And we've got a wee bit of time to go, so we'll continue talking. So these kids all stand around deciding who in society is required to rebuild society or keep them alive at least for the year. And you're thinking an electrician, yeah, we're definitely going to need one of them. And do we need a poet? Well, no. So let's get the poet out the bunker. You can get a gist of what the movie's about. Like I said, it's an okay movie. I was quite disappointed with the overall story arch. I was in my mind I had something else in my mind as to what was going to happen or what I was experiencing while watching the movie. But where does art sit in society? And I think if you don't realize that art, music, the creativity process is fundamental to the human being, um, then and you just focus on people that are engineers, you're going to be in for trouble because you've not taken into account the things that art brings, the emotion that it creates, the ability for a person to have a reason to live. I mean, we all go to work, and some people love their work. I mean, I quite like my work, but I'm definitely not a person who wouldn't, if you gave me all the money in the world, I would definitely stop doing what I'm doing, and I would move over to doing more passionate things like drawing and artwork. But I do enjoy my job. But I do my job to then go and see the cinema, and the cinema is where artists and actors produce some drama and emotion and information through the medium of art, through the medium of drama, through song, whatever it may be. If you went to see, and it's not like a big art movie because it's not, it's a big blockbuster, cheesy Maverick, which is the movie, which is the kind of follow up to Top Gun. I went to the cinema to see that, and just the music and the emotion that it made me feel. And remember a simpler time in life when I was a kid watching the first Top Gun. So, what do we need to understand that the world needs artists, the world needs, and that's why AI art can't take over, and it won't take over because people will still strive for that homemade, for that personable thing, the thing that they know somebody has created from almost a spiritual realm, if you want to take it from that point of view. There is a spirituality to artistic creation. There's a and getting into somebody's mind when you're producing art. It's not just a computer generated thing. So that was one of the things I was watching this week, and it just made me think about what role does art place in society, and I think it's big. I think the role of art is massive, and it may be street art. It can be structures, sculptures that we see. I mean, we go on holiday to see these things. We purposely jump on a flight to go and visit Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, to see something that man has created, because it gives us hope, it gives us purpose to our lives, it gives us something to hold on to as human. Right, so what other questions have I wrote down here? Describe a real life experience that inspired you. It, and then all these things tie in together, from AI art to where does art sit in society. And it's because some people don't have the capability to do the things that other people can do. And an example of something I did last year was the West Highland Way, which is a walk in Scotland, and it's 96 miles walking over. You can do it in 5 days if you want, you can do it in less. I did over 7 days, and you're walking through some of the most iconic scenery in Scotland that's possible. I can then come back and I've got some photographs, I've got some videos that I took at the time. Again, tools that are computer based, but they help me capture moments of life and they help me remember what I experienced at that time. One of the best examples of this would be Glencoe. So if I'm on my walk, which I was, and I am descending into Glencoe and the scenery down by the King's House, as I'm coming down through the mountains and the rain's coming and the mist is just chopping off the top of the mountains. It was just stunning. It reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings. So I now have that experience in my brain, which then makes its way into my art. It just seeps through your life experiences into your art. Other examples would be living by the ocean. So I do tend to paint a lot of water based paintings, or I did at the beginning. More recently, obviously, it's been kind of focused on portraits, but I love the ocean, the smell of the ocean. I grew up just um, living near a river where there was boats moored that then entered into the sea. The smells of the ocean, the clanging of the boat bells at night. It just it's why I love movies like Jaws, even though Jaws is scary. I do love Jaws because of that seaside atmosphere that they portray through the movie. The sunshine, the warmth, but the terror of what lies beneath the waves. So all our life experiences really kind of come and tell us about things that we draw. Eventually, once you've get by the how do I draw this, or how do I draw a nose, how do I draw an eye, once you get by all that and you've got those skills, you're then looking at, like for example in this picture, I loved the picture from is it Aaron West? I'm just going to quickly check the name. Aaron Westberg. I loved his image, and I don't remember what it was called, to be honest, but it just was a guy, he looks like he's maybe sitting in a coffee shop or something, contemplating life, but it just had a roughness and an expression on the face that I wanted to try and capture something similar, but with my own take on it. So these are the real life experiences that have they just work their way into your artwork regardless, and that's where AI art can't. It's I don't really know how you would get a computer to experience until it becomes sentient in terms of Terminator world where the computer can think for itself and it can feel, it can smell, it can take all those inputs in and be a sentient being, which is that possible? Is it going to happen? Who knows? If it's just a logical being, then no, logic doesn't transpire across the boundaries of love or logic just doesn't enter into those worlds. Again, I could talk about philosophy because of or theology, which is a subject I like to study. But we'll not go down that road at the moment. I'm just looking for other issues that I had wrote down here. At the moment, I am. What am I working on? At the moment, I'm working on just life. To be honest, there's a lot going on in life with family, and things may change. This YouTube channel may have to take a back seat because of things that are ongoing, and it's no easy things, difficult things. Again, something else that kind of you're looking at artwork, and I think there was an artist I was looking at, and it was quite gross. It was quite disgusting, the artwork. It was lovely artwork, but it was very um, graphic, and it was like a person almost tearing off their own skin, or an animal breaking into two different animals, one kind of going two ways. It was, as I say, very graphic art, but what I was looking at it from the point of view of was how as human beings we want to sometimes break out of our shells. We want to break free of the things that are stuck inside or the troubles that we're going through. We want to be somebody else. We want to be in a different world. We want to be able to leave that other person behind and let them deal with all the problems while we run away. Eh, so life at the moment is challenging, and as I say, I was looking through artwork and I was looking at the artwork from the point of view of what expresses my internal feelings at the moment, and could I bring something? Again, even this image feels a bit like that. You could take it both ways. He's contemplating life. He's thinking about something pretty serious. He's just trying to cope with breathing in and out. So I was just looking at my screen there, and the soul of the artist. So AI can never replace the soul of the artist, and I would probably agree with that. Certainly, no time in the near future can I imagine that happening or ever happening if humanity remains with human nature, which ultimately loves new tools and loves the shiny new toy. You can see that with the amount of AI art generated. I do. One of the things that is frustrating me a wee bit in regards to this is I've seen a few images come up as promotional material for various software, and I'm looking at it going, either the person's admitted that they've used AI art to generate the initial image, or that is a purely AI generated image with it's just like a purely AI generated image, which has then been sucked into some software and used. And I'm looking at it going, but I don't know why you're using that in your advertisement because it doesn't, it's not a representation of what somebody created in your program. Really, it's just something that was generated and then somebody's used. It's the same as photo bashing. Not saying that photo bashing isn't an art, and I understand that photo bashing, for anybody that doesn't know, is when you take a photo and you incorporate that into your artwork. I understand that a lot of concept artists are under extreme time pressures that to detail every tree, to detail every blade of grass, to detail every forest is just not practical. And that's where photo bashing has its place in the world. It's a tool. It's not the same as AI art. And I can see AI art being used as that tool to really, it could be used as that. It could be used as like a hybrid model to really bring some of the aspects of photo bashing in, and then the artist's work where it's got a commercial purpose that makes sense. But for somebody like myself who just likes making art, I'm not really overly interested in bringing photos into my work, other than I've seen a few people use it as texture, and I think it's really cool. But I want to learn how to draw a tree. I want to imagine that I'm back in the 18th century. There's no computers, and you might use some other method. You might use a method of tracing. You might use a method of capturing somebody in a different way. Maybe impress their face on clay to get appropriate dimensions. Just as an example, but you get what I'm saying though, is that it has frustrated me to see other artists being left behind where AI art has come in and been used by somebody to make a really cool looking picture. That then the company then go, oh look, they've made this in our something. Well, no, they didn't. They used an AI generator, and then they painted over that AI generated image. Now, did they make it unique? Perhaps, and perhaps my take on that is wrong. But from my own mind, I find it frustrating for somebody who, for example, this picture took 2 hours, about 2 hours 20 minutes from start to finish to create an AI generated image. If I had generated that from AI, I could have probably quartered that time, if not even more. I could have brought the time right down, and you would be looking at something going, oh, look at that, he's created that. No, I didn't. I created this. Every stroke on that screen is from my arm moving on a digital tablet, which obviously has its own generation, and you are generating it using a digital tool. But to me, it's different from you taking a photograph, bringing it in, and then manipulating that photograph. That's not the same as a John Singer Sargent painting. It's not the same as a Rembrandt where they've done every stroke from scratch, which is more the art I'm interested in creating. It just feels less. It's not cheating. It's definitely not. And like I said, I've downloaded a lot of AI art images to use, and I see a lot of aspects of the images being really useful from the point of view of lighting and using as a reference, which is different. You're then still putting every stroke and little movement, as you can see, me moving my cursor over the screen here. But yeah, that's a lot of talking today. Let's see how long we've got. We've got 6 minutes to go, so hopefully you've been enjoying watching along to this process. I think I captured the image relatively well in Rebelle 6, and I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed getting that look, which I've been kind of striving for a wee bit. At this point, I'm doing some canvas resizing. I was trying to get a wee bit more headroom above the head at this point, and I then squashed that again afterwards. The change I made to this image was this image or somebody behind the guy. I'd started looking at it from a person or a spirit or something being behind them. I haven't quite figured out if I'm going to take that any further. And I then wanted to kind of make this more of a square piece with some negative space above the head. But the purpose of this video really was not just talking, just a bit of an experiment to see how this video does, to see how it's received, to see how people maybe want more videos like this or not. Some people will, some people won't. People just want tips and tricks, which actually takes probably a lot longer to do because you've got a lot of editing to do. Whereas this video is just me enjoying painting. You get to watch along to the full process where you can see more or less every step that I've done to produce this, every brush that I've used, and I'm hoping that it is of use to you. Please check out the video up in the corner. There's loads of other videos. Consider liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. Cheers, and Wee Bob is out.